Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
And we have a wonderful topic and a wonderful guest today. I have to say, this is our first podcast that we're taping in the new year. So our Christmas decor is gone. We look a little hammered from everything at the end of the year, but we're back. We're ready. It's 2025. And we have Mark Naugle with us today. That name might sound familiar to you, because we're going to be talking about QuitMormon. How are you this morning, Mark?
I'm amazing. How are you guys?
We're hanging in there, aren't we, Landon?
Yeah, doing great. Of course, it's not morning for Mark. It's 3 in the afternoon. So
little time difference, a little bit of a time difference. That's right. So well, that's really fun. Yeah. So I came across a post a week or so ago about QuitMormon and some updates and things like that. And I started thinking about how I see quite often people on post-Mormon social media, nuanced social media, they're talking about QuitMormon. You know, there'll be questions that come up, or just, has anyone used it, or what's this, or how's this? And I thought, I think it's been a while since anybody's put anything out to just kind of delve into this. And so I reached out to Mark, and he's like, sure, I'd love to come on. It was pretty enthusiastic. I thought it was good. So he was willing. And so I think we're just going to talk to him a little bit about his background and how QuitMormon started. And maybe some of you in our audience and listeners and viewers don't even know what it is. So we'll kind of explain what that is, because I don't know that there's any other church out there where you have to take the steps that are involved when a Mormon, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, would like to remove their records. And it's a pretty intensive process from what I've heard. So why don't we start, Mark? Just tell us a little bit about your background and maybe how this evolved into starting this kind of a revolution.
Well, I grew up in the church. I was born and raised LDS. My parents were both converts from Kansas, and they moved to Utah. And just, coming from Kansas and going to Utah and seeing the lifestyle change, I think it was early 80s. I was born in 85. So they just thought, it was the bee's knees. It was the coolest thing ever. Everybody was, clean living and beautiful mountains. They converted, joined the church, and my brother and I grew up in the church until we were about 14. I was 14, my brother was 12, and one day my dad sat me down and said, I've been doing some research, Mark, and none of this is real. And and I've mentioned this before, but it was a huge weight off of my shoulders as a 14-year-old boy in the church, that I wasn't sinning. I wasn't going to hell. I wasn't, these things weren't as, it was weighing me down, honestly, as a young man. So the responsibility of it and the pressure of it was a lot. And I didn't even know that it was until my dad told me, don't worry about it anymore. And that lifted the weight off my shoulders. And we just kind of, at that point, left the church, and there was quite a transition for us, as far as, sending the letter to the bishop, and then having the bishopric show up at the house, and having the home teachers come to the house, and all of that kind of stuff. So,
and this would have been early 2000s. If you were 14, this would have been like late 90s, or if you were born in 85. So is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1999.
Okay.
98, 99. I was in middle school. Yeah.
And not a lot of people were leaving right then. I mean, that was before kind of more of the big surge. And so for your dad to do research and just sit you guys down, and you all went, okay. I mean, and as a family left, that's kind of an amazing story.
Right. Yeah. And it wasn't, and I don't know, I apologize right now. Can you guys hear my kid in the other room?
Whatever.
Yeah.
We're a family-friendly podcast. I've got dogs that snore all the time. RFM, when I podcast with him, keeps trying to tell people it's me. Like I have some kind of otorhinolaryngological problem. I do not. I have dog right now. If you can see them, they're like this, and they're just fine.
What kind of problem?
Otorhinolaryngologist is a person, ear, nose, and throat. So my mom used to pay me $0.25 for every word over 3 syllables that I used. So boy, did I go to that dictionary every morning. Mother, I feel that I'm suffering from triskaidekaphobia. What's that? The fear of the number 13. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a lot of fun at parties, or don't get invited in the first place.
Yeah, I can. I just go with ENT. That's the limit of my.
I don't know how the podcast is already off the rails, and we're like, so anyway, that's like it's fine. Everything's fine. We can't hear anything. So, but yeah,
Okay,
that's
good.
incredible. And everybody left. Like your mom, everyone just said okay.
Did you have any reservations when he told you that and went, "Oh my gosh, no, I believe it," or was it like, "Oh, thank goodness you"? Because when we told our son, it was the same thing. It was like, "Oh, I never really believed anyway." After years of raising him in the church, it was like, I didn't really believe anyway.
Just going with the flow.
Yeah, no, I believed. I believed. I was terrified of hell and Satan and doing the wrong things, and I believed. So it was an immediate relief for me. I know my brother was probably less of a believer and more of a just a go along to get along kind of guy. It was my mom who had the hardest time with it, and she had never been Mormon. So my dad had actually been LDS before he converted back. Back in the he was born in 45, so he grew up Mormon actually in Kansas, and then he left the church when he was a young, like 18, 19, and then reconverted with my mom, and so she actually had the hardest time with it, and she wanted to still go to church. She'd always gone to church. She was a Lutheran in Kansas, and so church was like community and important to her. So her deal was, okay, if we're not going to this church, we still have to go to some church. And so that's, we ended up going to Christ Evangelical in Orem for a while, which is now Center Point Church.
Okay.
For a couple of years before, I went to college and just kind of abandoned religion in general.
And that was it. Did your dad ever tell you exactly what he came across that made him, or did he go into it or just say, son, it's just not what we think and we're going to do something else?
Right. Yeah. That's what he told me. I just remember like leaving his kind of office where we talked about it and just like being on cloud nine, honestly, just feeling so free, just walking down the street. And then of course it all came out, what he had found over the, months and years after that.
So you left the church at a very young age. How did you come to say, I think there needs to be a way to quit the Mormon church if you're already out or not really attending?
Yeah, so we had our experience. It took us about 6 months of we would hide, lock the door and like hide in the house, turn off the lights and stuff. We'd see him coming down the drive. Luckily, we had a really long driveway, so we'd see him coming from a long way, and we could hide and go get under the, look out the window, that kind of thing. And it was just so weird, right? When you think about it, it's super weird that people in dark suits start showing up to your house when you don't go to church anymore. So we had that experience. And then when I graduated from law school, I learned about, representing people as far as, becoming their power of attorney or an agent, and realized the church should not be contacting people who are represented by an attorney. So I started doing it for a few friends here and there, some other family members, and just kind of putting myself between them and the church, and things went smoothly. And just kind of did it here and there for a long time. And then in November 2015, the church handbook was released that had a bunch of just very anti-LGBT, draconian, it sounds like you guys swear on this podcast, bullshit.
Yeah.
That just ticked me off. And I went on Reddit and I said, hey, I've been doing this for friends and family. I've done like 80 of them or something like that, send me your info. And I got 2,000 requests in like 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was grinding on those, doing them by hand, just trying to get them out. And, early days, you're motivated, you're excited, everybody's excited. We did a mass resignation event, I think a couple weeks after that, where, a bunch of, I think we had like 5,000 at that event or something like that we did. And I sent in a box, a bank box full of resignations to church headquarters. And it just kind of went from there. And then Ryan Sorensen, he's a co-founder of QuitMormon.com. He's the tech side of everything. So he's like, I'll write you the website. I'll do the the data side of things, and we can automate a lot of it with having people create their own resignation letters and all that kind of stuff. And so that's how we got to where we are today. And that's kind of what we've been doing the last 8 years, just kind of limping along, trying to patch it where we can. Ryan does this, someone says this isn't working, and so Ryan patches this, and I take some steps in the other direction, and we just try to do as much as we can to get these done. But to be honest with you, we don't feel like we're doing a great job. We don't feel like we're like really serving people. We're just kind of scraping by. We're just a couple of dudes up against a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, I think we all feel that way. Maybe for our viewers or listeners who have no idea what it takes to quit the Mormon Church, pretend someone knows nothing. How would you explain when you say we worked through these or we processed these? What do people have to do, and what are you doing for them? Just because I know there are people that are never Mormons that listen and watch, and they probably have no idea what we're talking about. And that's the most shocking part of what it actually does take. I mean, you already mentioned that they come and visit you and you have to write a bishop's letter, but there's these hoops that are just incredible. So maybe just, kind of dumb it down for those that might not know it all. What does it mean to process them, or what do people have to do?
Yeah, and it's not the same experience for everyone. It kind of depends on your community. It depends on who your bishop is. It kind of depends on who you are, right? So in general, I guess the way I would describe it is for the most Mormon Mormons, right? Like, let's say you're the most hardcore believing, everyone is Mormon, right? And everyone that isn't is like, they're not really part of your life, right? Every single facet of your life is Mormonism. The day you go, oh no, crap, this might not be real. I might have been, given 10% to this corporation, and I might have, I might have been wasting my, that's how people feel when they initially sometimes come to grips. You're now extricating yourself from every facet of your life, right? So your boss is Mormon, your kids go to school with all the Mormons,
they're enrolled in seminary. Yep.
Every part of your life is attached to this thing that you've now, like, I think the expression is your shelf broke. Right? Is that still? I'm not on Mormon Reddit anymore.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it can be really hard because all of these people, they love you and they care about you, and they want to go to heaven with you. They want to go to the highest level of heaven, and they want to be with you, and they think you've just been led astray, right? You've just sampled the devil's whatever. And so they love you, and they want to keep you in the fold. And so they'll show up, and that's what they're taught to do as well. They'll show up and they'll knock on the door and they'll ask you what your problem is. And they don't really want to hear what's wrong. They only want to fix it. So you can come back in. And so for that person to extricate themselves, what I've tried to provide is just a barrier, and say, okay, the bishop, okay, the primary president, okay, home teachers, which aren't called that anymore, they're called ministers now, right? So stay away and let this person figure their stuff out on their own, and just get them off the record. If they don't want to be a part of this anymore, please remove their name. And if you have any questions, you can contact me, their attorney, which usually means they don't, contact me.
So you're a shield basically for not having to deal with that. Because if you are a Never Mormon, you might not know that as soon as you're blessed as a baby, there's a record started for you, and it follows you your whole life. If you live in one area and attend one ward, your record is there. And then it moves to another ward. It follows you around. It shows when you're baptized, when you're married, what ordinances you've had. And so it's your record in the church. And this is what people are trying to remove your records, remove your membership. Do not contact me. I don't want to do it anymore. So,
and
and
they will
that being
track,
said, go ahead, Landon.
they will track you down even if you leave you can move away, and they'll call your mom or your dad or some friend of yours and try to find out where you moved to, so they can send that record so that the ward in that area can then start contacting you to find out, try to get you back into the fold.
Yeah. Or you might have you could have a zealous family member who gives your information to missionaries, and says, go find my mom. She's on a misguided path. She started a podcast and she needs someone to come visit her. And this is
wow, that sounds personal.
Purely not what's happening at all. But yeah, so membership records, that's the thing. A lot of people are like, well, just don't go to church anymore. Go to the church down the block. It doesn't work that way, like Mark is trying to describe too. And it is funny because I think about your leaving story, Landon, where you had multiple interviews, because family members, were saying, go talk to this bishop, go talk to this person. You knew so much and you shared so much with them about the problems and the truth claims that they were scared to death of you. So nobody ever talked to you.
Nobody came. They stopped.
They warned them, I believe, don't go over there and heart attack his door and try to love him back, because you might hear something, because they knew that you knew. I mean, you went in and talked to a bishop who said, I talked to him for how many hours? Like 3 hours. And what did he say? Yeah. What did he say to you?
He said, he hadn't heard any of that. Yeah, I didn't know any of this. Yeah. So it's definitely a process. What surprises me about the process is how legalistic it is, because I don't remember getting baptized that I was 8 years old. I couldn't even enter a legal contract. Now to get out of it, all of a sudden,
you'd write cursive.
Yeah, they're requiring a letter be sent, and it has to be notarized, and it's like, I didn't have to notarize anything to join. Why do I have to notarize anything to get out? What's your experience with that or explanation? I know they didn't used to require that, but
when did that start? That step? Because I think that was one of the first things where other people went, wait, what? You have to notarize? That's when they started to realize the nature of the organization, that it was more like a corporation. So when did that start?
Yeah, if we ever get enough money, enough funding to put up a billboard, it's going to say QuitMormon.com. We shouldn't have to exist. What happened is so, initially a signature was enough. We would send in, signed paper. Then there was some fraud. Then people started sending in Gordon B. Hinckley's name and Thomas S. Monson's name. And
now, wait a minute. I wouldn't call that fraud. I'd call that quitting by proxy.
Right.
Seems to be more Mormon than anything.
You're saying people would write a letter and they'd say, I, Thomas Monson, want to quit the church. Please take my name off the rolls. Please, this. And that was not really him. Okay, I understand.
Right, and of course, we can't catch every single one of those.
Right.
We'd find some stuff and, be like, is this really you? Then they started requiring. So that was their justification for saying, okay, we need identification for every single person now that wants to resign.
So it's really you, though, right? I mean, it's really your site that created that, because now that people are going through you en masse, that's where they're trying to lock down, is this real? Because prior to that, it was just like you personally contacted your leader who knew you. You send them a letter and say, I want to resign, then all that visiting and everything back and forth. And finally, they submit the request to Salt Lake. But now you've got this third party where you're just signing up through your site. And so, okay, I can understand that. So you caused the need for a notary.
Yeah, and it's actually, we've found, I hear people say, well, I just told my bishop and he got me off no problem. I have a great relationship, but he's a nice guy. Like, great, do it that way then. That's fine. I'm not here to make it have to be this way.
Right.
I was just trying to help. And honestly, it's just kind of, this is the most organic thing that's ever happened in my life. If you're in the Western United States and you Google quit, the second thing that pops up is QuitMormon.com. Yeah. So it's we never put money into this. We never tried to make this big. It's just a service that people needed and wanted. So and the church attorneys have told me, they're going to call the Utah State Bar. They're going to get ethics complaints against me. They've tried to trap me into somehow being responsible for every single submission, as far as like, if it's fraudulent, it's somehow my fault. It's complex, and how they've tried to do things like that. But they've tried to slow QuitMormon.com down, and people leaving the church as much as possible. So, I mean, I don't know. We kind of like to pretend that we're the reason that it's not cool to say Mormon anymore. Ex-Mormon subreddit and QuitMormon.com. Right. You're not supposed to say those. It's a derogatory term now, right? According to the church, to call them Mormons.
Right.
So,
and don't search it, right? If you don't search the word Mormon, you're not going to stumble upon, what's this Quit Mormon, honey? Oh, I don't know. Right. Should we quit? Yes.
Correct.
And I say that, and it's funny because I have not removed my records, and Landon hasn't removed his records either. And I kept mine because of my parents, because they do the tithing settlement. They see our names. They both just passed away within the last year. And so now I'm in this position where I'm like, do I do that? Do I not do it? I don't know. I'm still on the fence about it for various reasons. Part of me says I want to have something where there's a big reason where I say this is, finally what I do, kind of like 2015. That was huge. A lot of people said that's it. The LGBTQ policy changes. I don't know. Part of me also says my kids are TBM. My kids are faithful. Everyone else, family, friends, maybe just to say, look, I'm not trying to leave. I'm trying to make a difference from the outside. I still, think there's a lot of good in the church, and I have, like I said, family, friends, children. So, I could kind of say I've done everything I can. I chose not to quit. They dragged me out or something. I don't know. I go around and around about it. That's kind of getting personal, but I am in this situation now that I never thought I'd be. I thought my parents would, have another 10 years or so, but they didn't. And so now I don't really have the reason anymore. So I don't know. What are your feelings, Landon? Your records are still in too.
Well, I'm no quitter. So
that's it.
No, that for me, I've struggled because I say, well, I don't want the church to be able to say who I am or define what I am and let them say, oh, you have to have our permission to leave, because that's my choice and I get to make it, and I don't need to ask their permission, and I don't need to obey their rules that are all made up to begin with in order to quit. So that part of me has said, this is my choice. I left, and I don't need to report to them or get their permission in any way. The other side of that though is I kind of say, well, I don't want to be counted in their numbers, and I don't want to be, have them say that they have 17 million when they really have 3.5 million. So, I've gone back and forth. Do I get my names off the roll or not? But for now, I've decided I don't need their permission, and I'm just going to go on being me. And I was born Mormon. I was raised Mormon. Everyone in my family's Mormon. So I can say I'm Mormon, and I don't have to, the church doesn't get to say whether I call myself Mormon. The church doesn't say whether I can quit being a Mormon. I get to say that. And that's kind of the stand I'm taking.
There it is on Landon's soapbox. And I think that we should explain to people, the church does claim it has over 17 million members, but those of us that are more on the post-Mormon side are like, a lot of those numbers are people that joined very briefly, don't even really realize there's a record for them, or just don't want to take the time to go through these hoops to, take their record off. So a lot of these are,
or they're dead.
Or they're dead. That's the other thing you have to understand, is that if they haven't heard from you, they can't track you down. Now, I have talked before about having family members that went on a mission, and their job was to search for, I think, 1,500 people that had never been seen or heard from, but were on the records in a certain area, in a certain state, and they didn't really ever find anybody, So if they can't find you, they just keep your name on the record until you're 110 years old. So like Landon said, a lot of these people are dead. I was trying to think of how many people do I know that their names are on and they have nothing to do with the church. I can think of growing up, my family were the ones that would invite the neighbors over for dessert and a film strip from the church library, Man's Search for Happiness, or all those. I was mortified, even as a little kid, just mortified. Please don't, please. I'm already so weird in the neighborhood. Please don't, But so we had, 2 sets of neighbors that my parents did that and converted, they joined the church. They were baptized. Then they never came again after like a month. So these people are on, I'm sure they never understood, this would be what, 50 years ago, that they had to remove their names. And I'm sure they're still there. So there's a whole couple of families. And I know there are so many scenarios like that where people join and they just don't understand they need to go to QuitMormon, or they just walk away. And so those are the numbers, 17 million. They're not really Mormons.
Yeah.
I will say about, and I think Landon and both you, Rebecca and Landon, have healthy perspectives on this. And that's part of what we want to do with QuitMormon, is create more of an atmosphere or an environment, or at least provide resources to people. It's like, you don't give them the power. Right. Yeah. So another thing that the church did is they just took so long to approve QuitMormon removals. So they would just delay, and they still do. They still delay and delay and delay. And I have to nag them and say, what's going on with this? And then the users of QuitMormon are like, what's going on? I haven't heard from the church. And it's like, they're doing that. You're giving them the power right now by getting upset that they're not processing this on time. So we started saying, okay, your resignation is legally effective within 5 days of us submitting it. And we told the church this. We consider this legally effective essentially as soon as you receive this, that this person's name is removed. But honestly, they could say every single name that I've ever sent them is removed, but who knows if that's even true, right? Mm-hmm. We don't actually know if there's not a blacklist somewhere, right? Or if they just move them to the name removed file.
And that's what I think they did, because don't you remember a couple years ago, I can't remember if I can get the details right on this, but they sent notifications to people who had removed their records that there was a data breach. And right. So that tells you they still have a way to contact you. And maybe legally companies do have to keep that in order, exactly that, a data breach, but it still tells you that you're always going to be somewhere listed somewhere. So you're right. You're the one that needs to decide, I don't give you any authority or credence whatsoever. I'm not going to get upset because it's not real as far as this power that you have over me. But I do understand why people are triggered and upsetting. And I also understand why people take it as an act of regaining, your autonomy. Like it's a very important step. I know some people do rituals after they, get the official word that they've been taken off the rolls. They'll burn something or there are different ways that people have to try to make that statement and regain, their sense of self, I think. But it's interesting because when I do see comments like that on post-Mormon social media where someone will say, it was easy. I sent it into QuitMormon and it happened soon. Other people are like, oh my gosh, I'm still waiting. Or other people say, I just talked to my bishop and he sent it in right away. Other people will say, I talked to my bishop. Is it normal that I now have to meet with the stake and an area rep? And, but I think what you're telling us is it depends on the leadership, and it depends on who you are, because I would think like if a stake president wants to leave, I feel like you'd probably have to go through a lot of steps. So I guess the message is, everybody, it's going to be very variable depending on all these different factors. So again, excellent advice. Don't give that power away. It'll get done and you don't need to get upset about it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Landon.
Oh, I was going to say, I like how the church always, the statement, we've all heard it, they can leave the church, but they can't leave it alone. Well, a lot of people are trying to leave. The church won't let them leave. So it's that statement is, you have to laugh when you say, oh, really? I have to have a notarized statement to leave is your requirement. That seems ridiculous.
Yeah, it does. And again, that's part of what we're trying to do in expanding our services. Is we want to be able to refer people to psychologists and therapists who know how to help you through a faith transition, right? So we're trying to build a network of doing that kind of thing. We realize just sending in the letter, it obviously isn't enough for a lot of people, right? Many people are happy with just getting, having that letter sent saying, that's it, that closes my chapter, I can move on with my life. And then a lot of other people, it's a deprogramming situation where they need to figure out how to move past it here and not just on paper.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we saw a post recently on Post-Mormon social media where I guess we should kind of explain to listeners and viewers, when you go into tithing declaration, used to be called settlement, now declaration, usually the head of the household will always, I think, given a little sheet that shows all the people that are listed that are members of the church in your family. So you go in, oh, there's me, there's my wife, there's a list of my kids. So this is what I explained. I didn't want to remove my records because when my parents would get that slip, they would say, well, where's Rebecca? And they would know, they would find out through that, even if I didn't want to tell them, I didn't want to worry them or bother them in their late 80s because they wouldn't understand, they would be told right there, I would be outed as having removed my records. And there was someone on social media that happened to. They said, well, my parents know now because they went to tithing settlement. So there's all these things that you have to consider when you're doing this. There's all these touch points where you will be outed as far as what your personal decisions are when it comes to formally removing your records. And so that can cause a lot of problems in families. It can cause a lot of trauma, like you said. So again, not leaving it alone. They're not leaving you alone by letting everyone in your family know through this record keeping process. And I mean, what was it? Something was posted. Oh, I won't even tell that story. But yeah, a member of my family for fun posted like a picture of a list of our family members, and certain people aren't on the list anymore. And I'm like, oh, that kind of outs them. So there's a lot of touch points where personal information can be made public. All the more reason that people do want to remove their records, but privately, right? Which is where QuitMormon can help, I think.
Mark, it's kind of like a divorce when you quit. Yeah. Do you guys recommend, hey, give it a month waiting period before you file the letter, or do you pretty much, hey, it's your decision once you've decided, we process, and what's your personal opinion on that kind of stuff?
My only advice to anyone who asks is, if you're not ready for absolutely everyone in your life to know, don't do it. Yeah. If you're not ready for it to be on TV, or social media, or if you're not ready for absolutely everyone to know that you're off the records, don't do it. But yeah, we've never done like a waiting period or anything like that. If you've got at this point, if you have a signed notarized letter and everything's in order, we send it in for you. Now, I have had people certainly, want to claw that back after they find out grandma's going to take them out of the will, or whatever it is. But we tell them too, if once it's signed, once it's submitted, it's not coming back. You're going to have to, and the church will tell you that too. Well, come on back in and we'll go through the teachings and talk about baptism. But there's no just putting you back on. Although I have seen some other cases where they'll just put them back on. It depends on who you are and who your leadership is.
That's true. Maybe explain what we were going to maybe bring the website up, but then you really have to create an account on it. So maybe just describe, if someone were to Google QuitMormon, go to the site, what would they find there? What is the process?
Basically, an opportunity to create an account. Once you create that account, you enter some basic information, membership number if you had of it, date of birth, all the names that you've potentially used with the church. That will create a PDF for you to print, take to a notary, have notarized. You'll upload it to us, and we send it to the church.
And there it is.
Is there a cost associated with it?
It's absolutely free. It's been free since the beginning.
Yeah, that's the thing. And gosh, what was I going to say? Let's see. So the people will find their own notary, and once they have the PDF and have to have it signed. So I know that's so hard to get over. And I have seen lots of posts where people say, I'll do that. I will know, people offer their service to notarize. And sometimes you do have events, those mass resignations. I've seen those, usually at very pivotal times when things are happening, Sam Young or November 15th, things like that. They'll have those. So, but you were involved in the November 5th policy one.
Yeah, that's right. And
was that a physical? Did people go to a location? That was maybe talk about that a little bit, because that was such a tense time.
Yeah, that was at City Creek Park, actually. Across the street from the church office building. So that was incredible. It was. I think it's the only one I've actually been a part of myself. They still will happen, and then they'll drop off all the resignations to me. But that's the only one that I've ever been a part of. I think the line, what we did is, we set up a booth where, get your paperwork in order and then get in line and I'll sign it right in front of you. And then, put it in the box to take to the church. And I think that line was like 3 hours long or something like that. Wow. So yeah, it was, one of the most, it's funny. You have those moments as a Mormon, right? Or as a religious person, or even just someone who, experiences God in nature, where you just feel uplifted, right? That was probably one of those moments for me, like the most uplifting moments of my life, is to be a part of that, for sure.
Yeah. And to see all those people. So, and speaking of all those people, do you then have stats of how many people have used QuitMormon? I mean, we know, for those of you that don't know, viewers or listeners, the church is very close to the vest on any kind of statistics. Things they do put out are not accurate, like the membership number of 17 million, and really closer to more like 3.5 million, 4 million. So as far as how many people are walking away, removing their records, I mean, we're assured from the church that that's not really happening in very big numbers. And also now being assured that many, many people are returning. That's the latest thing that they're saying. So what kind of stats do you see? I mean, do you have a mechanism to collect those, or do you?
So we initially did, we would keep track, and like we had a Twitter account, and but honestly, a lot of that has fallen by the wayside as we've just tried to survive.
Yeah.
But we do know that we've submitted more than 140,000 requests to the church, individual requests, since 2016.
And that's just QuitMormon. So anyone's doing it on their own or going in or just leaving, Have you seen the numbers changing? Is it accelerating? Obviously there was the November 15th, which had a big time, but are you seeing the numbers fairly steady or upward, downward?
They're fairly steady. It's usually 4 or 5 a day here and there. Sometimes like 10 a day, I guess, would be maybe the average. And then after someone says something stupid at general conference, I consider myself like truly a post-Mormon, in that I don't even know what's happening anymore. I don't know people's names. I don't know, the big events. Yeah. I don't know who's saying what, but I'll log in and be like, whoops, somebody said something. Yeah. And then you'll see that there'll be a big surge after general conferences usually.
Yeah. Well, I can think of the latest surge, I think, which was maybe was about 6 months ago, where they made I guess it would have been conference, the changes in the handbook for transgender individuals, just some of those really, it was just rough. And I personally got these messages from people that I don't even know. And they said, I love your podcast. I just want you to know that, because of this change in the handbook, I've decided to quit. Or my daughter finally came to me, and said, can we just be done, Mom? And I want you to know that we're quitting. I got like 5 of those, just me, somebody that they knew as a podcaster and just wanted to let them know. So I can only imagine that eventually people just say, that's it, I'm out. Or they're just, I think a lot of it has to do with how much harm they perceive in the church, especially when you have kids. That's why a lot of it has to do with LGBTQ issues, where they're like, finally, I can't. And we have one friend who resigned who really wasn't going to, because of a mixed faith scenario and all that, but sometimes you're just pushed and you're just like, that's it. I cannot be aligned with this in any way. There's too much harm. There's harm for my kids. That's or friends. That's a big issue. And they will just do it. So the reasons are very personal to do it and not to do it. And I'm sure you see that. So I love that idea of somehow, since you're that touch point there where people first go to try to resign, to provide, resources or ideas for resources. Because I would hope by this point, I mean, Landon and I talk about this a lot. You stepped away, Landon, in what year? Like 15, right?
I'm thinking it's been about 7 years now.
Yeah, about 7 years. And even 7 years ago, Landon was like, there was nobody to talk to. I couldn't really find anything. There wasn't a group. I didn't know what to do, and that's why Landon and I connected just randomly on Post-Mormon social media. And we started a Post-Mormon book club called the Good Book Club, which has been going now for like 5 years. Yeah, headed to 6. Where people just read books, we deconstruct through reading, we have Zoom meetings, we talk, but now I think my point here is there are so many resources for people to connect, whoever you are, whatever you need, women's groups, men's groups, teens groups, I would hope now that people are able to find a place or find a podcast that speaks to them, or find something way more than when you stepped out, Landon, because the first thing Landon ever said to me when we were kind of messaging, we were talking on just, a thread with different people about the book club. And then several of us jumped over to a side thread to start planning how we would do this. And he said, I'm Landon and I've never had anyone to talk to, and it breaks your heart. You just don't want anybody to be in that scenario, because it should be the first day of the rest of your life, right?
Yeah,
and it should be really positive. So I love that idea. Is that, now I know we're going to talk about your fundraiser and all that. Is that kind of some of the impetus for what your next steps are? What's the future of Quit Mormon?
Yeah, and that's that's certainly part of it. But what we see as the future, well, I'll say right now, like I said, over the last 5-6 years, Ryan and I both have full-time jobs. We both have families.
Yeah,
We're doing this on nights and weekends. We're scraping it together. We're making sure that this gets done. And to be honest with you, I think I said before, we're just not doing as good a job as we want to be able to do with it. So we recently had a big potential donor reach out to us and say, what would it take for you guys to do a good job, right? To feel like you are actually doing what you want to do with this. And we started running the numbers and thinking okay, if we want apps, we want to have people be able to just do it on their phone, seamlessly on their phone. We want to put notaries together, or have free notary services, or have notary incorporated in the site. We want to have a list or a network of therapists and counselors and meetup groups and all of that stuff that run through us. Or at least we, have access to. We can say, this person's leaving, they're alone, help them, right?
Yeah.
And send them in those directions. We want to have a staff attorney who can really just call the church every single day and say, I'm missing names for Mary Smith, Steve Jones, and really just and keep up with the law on things as well. So we have really, really big ideas and big plans. And when we started putting together the numbers to make that happen and to sustain it over time, that's how we kind of arrived at the kind of 2.5 million would get us going for 10 years, right? Maybe indefinitely. And if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, Quit Mormon probably goes away, to be honest with you, because there's no attorney that's signing off on it. I've had attorneys reach out to me and say, how can I help? And when I say, here's how you can help, they go, maybe not. Right.
I can't do what you do. Yeah, I get that. Oh my goodness. So do you have, well, we'll put links to everything in the show notes. Do you have a page where people can go? How can they support? This is very worthwhile, everybody. This is incredible.
You can donate directly on the website on QuitMormon.com. And then we do have a GoFundMe that we started because, we want people to see what they're donating to.
Right.
So we've tried to provide kind of at least a short list of what our goals are there to try to show people the value of it. And the idea is not to, we're a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit.
You are. That's important to know. Okay.
So any donations are tax deductible, and then we want to create a legitimate board of directors. We want to have public reporting. We want to do all the stuff that makes us a legitimate organization that can actually stand up at least a little bit against this major corporation that has unlimited money. And Curtin and McConkie is a 70 lawyer law firm in downtown Salt Lake, and that's who I have to talk to.
I was going to say you're ballsy to be able to call them every day and say, hey, wow.
Yeah. So the idea is to try to just do a better job with Quit Mormon. And we're happy and we're proud of what we've done, but we can sense that we can do a better job for everybody.
So we have found that people like to, they donate. They're very generous when they donate to our podcast too, but they also like to give in-kind donations, meaning help with expertise. We have had people reach out and say, hey, let me help with this website. Do you want people to reach out to you who could say, I can create an app for you guys. I can do this, because there are some super smart post-Mormons out there that can do all this kind of stuff. Are you interested in having people reach out with offers of help too, in addition to monetary donations?
We do get offers like that all the time. It's a little tough
Yeah, it's hard to
because
read through 'em.
people will be very excited to help and commit to possibly more than they can
Yeah.
chew. And so we found that over time, it just usually is better if we could just, choose our developer or choose the person who's going to do this thing and just hire a professional and just get it done, rather than say, oh, well, Dave, I know you volunteered to do this and the deadline's passed. And
yeah.
We get that. But people are always excited to help, and
right. They are.
You're right. There's something about a paid employee where you're like, it's due Friday. Get it done.
Yep. Exactly.
We're ruthless. So what do you think, Landon? This sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd really like to see this, QuitMormon has been one of the kind of the mainstays of post-Mormondom that everybody knows, oh, have you sent in your letter? Go here. So yeah, it needs to be around for people who want that, because that's a real emotion when you find out that you've been basically played for 50 years. You're mad and you want to do something about it. And a lot of people, that something is, I want my name off now, and they don't know how, or they don't know where to do, or they don't want to go sit with the bishop who might be a friend of theirs or something and have to tell them. They just want to be able to say, send this to Salt Lake and tell them, F off. That's what they're trying to say.
Unsubscribe, right? That's what you want to do. Unsubscribe and you're done.
Wouldn't that be great if you had on LDS on the LDS app, where you go and pay your tithing, you can go unsubscribe and your name goes off the list. They'll never make it that easy.
That's my dream. That's my dream. QuitMormon will be gone tomorrow if that's all they have to do. I will disappear into the night. No problem at all.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Do you ever get accused of leading people out or encouraging people to leave, or, actively promoting leaving, or, but you're not at all. You're just there as a service for people that are, once they find you, they've arrived at it. You know what I mean? They've wrestled, they've made the decision, they're looking for help. But it's funny how often I think a lot of us, and I would assume you especially, would be maybe vilified or accused of, really making it so easy that you're encouraging people to leave.
Yeah, I think the first thing that it says on our website is we're not encouraging anyone to do anything, but we're here if you need us.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I've gotten more hate mail over the years as an immigration attorney than I ever have as the QuitMormon guy. So I actually, my in-laws are very, is it still TBM? We still saying TBM?
I say it. I don't know. Maybe not. Faithful.
And we have a great relationship. They love me. And my mother-in-law especially runs into people all the time, like her hairdresser used QuitMormon.com. And she's like, oh, well, that's my son-in-law. She's proud of it, but she's still, so it's kind of a funny thing. I don't get too much of that really anymore. Early on, it was kind of, he doesn't know how to tie a tie, or I don't remember. It was like the lamest hate mail I ever got. But it's all right.
It's okay. I know that somebody has to stand up in front, right, and be that shield for people, or provide something that people need. And so, tell me I'm now that how many years have you been doing it now? So 2015. It's 10 years. Coming up this year.
Coming up this year, QuitMormon.com as a nonprofit organization has existed since July of 2016.
Okay. Yeah. So we're talking like a decade, and this is amazing. So what has, I'm sure you had certain expectations going in, or things you thought, what has been surprising or different than you thought, or has it all gone kind of like you thought it would? I mean, it's such an interesting adventure.
No, I did. So I think I told you I did 80 of them, right? I maybe had 80 of them. I had them all stapled on my wall at my house, 80 of them. And I was like, it'd be cool to get 1,000 of these, it'd be cool to do 1,000. And then, it just blew up. We did the 2,000 in 24 hours, and then it just hasn't stopped ever since. And it's, like I said, it's not something I ever planned to do. It's not something we ever put money into. It just organically has been a service that people obviously need.
So do you now have 140,000 of them stapled to your
It's the
wall?
wallpaper.
No, I did have them in boxes in a storage unit for a long time, and I finally got all those scanned in, and now we have electronic copies of everything, as required by
Right.
legal
You
standards.
ought to have a big party when you get to 144,000.
Oh.
And that's also one of the things we want to do. I now have imagined a Quit Mormon gala, right? Or a Quit Mormon, fundraising events and things like that we can really push this thing forward. So I think that would be nice for people to be a part of and enjoy, and make our statement on the community as well.
Yeah, and I like the idea of a billboard. I mean, your name, and you understand that it has very wide recognition in the Mormon and post-Mormon world. So unlike President Nelson, you're not going to change it, because Quit Mormon is a great name and it's very recognizable. Everybody knows what it is. So you're right. A billboard, t-shirts, events, fundraisers, just helping people get their launch kind of there with community and then go out from there. So Quit Mormon stories, right? You could start that. Where
Why
people
not?
tell their
Yeah,
leaving
sure.
stories. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, you might have to call it something different than Quit Mormon stories, but just people could tell that pivotal moment, because it's an actual action that you take. You have all these things happen, you get all this information, you have, the dark night of the soul, you have the struggle, you have the family, you have everything that happens. And then there's this moment where you must take action. You must do something with everything that's happened to you and everything that you've learned. And that is to remove your record, on your own terms. And there you go to Quit Mormon. So it's this axis, it's this pivotal point right there. And I think that can be used for a lot of good. So I think a fundraiser is a great starting point, but I think there can be really big things for Quit Mormon. I think it's great. What do you think, Landon?
Have you tried to get the domain Quit Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
It's Quit the Church of Jesus
The
Christ.
Church of Jesus Christ.
That's right. Yeah. I want to know how many people end up on that Bicker Tonight site by going to I don't know. Oh my gosh. So funny. So, well, this is great. So, the links that we'll put in the show notes then will be to the GoFundMe. And what else? We'll make sure we let everybody know there's their website. And
you just if you go right to quitmormon.org, there's a donate button right on that page. So yeah, you can go right there and donate to them. And
okay.
And if you want to see, our plans and more detail of what we're working on, the GoFundMe page is great too. Kind of outlines what we're trying to do. We've written a 10-page business plan that if we ever, get to the point where we might get close to reaching that goal, we are going to post and we're going to, be held to it. So the plan is to be in the big time, do things the right way and try to really help people in more ways than just clicking a button and sending in their resignation.
I love that. And what you're doing is very quantifiable. I mean, we podcast, whatever, we help people, we get, emails back or whatever that we meant something, but you've got a number. You're doing this service for people that would like to remove their records, which again is a very personal choice. It's not for everybody. Some people are out for a really long time and then finally decide, like you say, events happen or whatever, I've got to do this, but it has a lot of meaning. So it's supercharged in many ways. So, well, this is awesome. I'm so glad that we got to talk to you about Quit Mormon and find out more about it and just the goals going forward, which I think this could be huge. Honestly, I think there's a very big future here. I think this is going to be amazing. So, I hope that everybody will go to the Quit Mormon site. Like I said, we'll put all these links in the show notes. Just check it out. Even if you're not ready to remove your records right now, just see what it's about, and see how you can help others that are ready to remove their records. And it's a really big step, sort of like I said, the first day of the rest of your life, right? That's how I see it described. A lot of people on social media will put, hey, I got my letter back. I'm free from that now, and now what? Now I go forward. So it's a big pivotal moment for a lot of people. So any last thoughts, Landon, before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say, Mark, thank you for all the time that you've put into this. I know that websites aren't free. Your time certainly isn't free. Storage units to store all these records isn't free. Scanning all of these records is not free. So I know you've got a lot of your own resources and money put into this. And I think those of us in the post-Mormon world say thank you for the work that you put into making this possible.
It's my pleasure. I really, really appreciate those kind words. And I will say, part of the reason I still continue to do this is because there is no lack of kind words and cards and emails and handwritten notes that come in, and it is inspiring to see people just be grateful without being told to be grateful.
Right. Yep, that's it. Because you're doing something with a lot of meaning to a lot of people, and you probably never will know how much it means to so many people. So it's excellent. We salute you and your service. This is amazing. So, all right, everybody, please comment on this. Have you used QuitMormon, or have you gone the other route with the bishop and it took you like 2 years? Let us know your experiences with QuitMormon and what your thoughts are on what Mark has kind of outlined as going forward, which I think is amazing. And if there are ways that you might be able to help, you can comment on that too. And for sure, go over and take a look at making a donation or helping as you can for this very important cause. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. And if you'd like to be made aware of when new episodes come out, you can hit the notification bell. We always have links in our show notes to donate to Mormonish Podcast. We are also a nonprofit, and we appreciate all of you that do so much. I mean, all of us, it's a labor of love, what all of us do, from QuitMormon to Mormon stories, to Mormon discussions, to Mormonish, to everything. But it definitely takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes resources. And you guys are so good at just, showing your appreciation or showing what we can mean to you guys by what we do when you donate. And we just love it. You give us the warm fuzzies when you do that. So thank you so much for all of your donations. We really appreciate it. We also have links in the show notes to our Mormonish merch. So if you want to get a mug or a hat or a t-shirt, you can always do that. And once again, thank you so much, Landon, for co-hosting. And thank you, Mark, for coming on at 3 p.m, wherever you are in your undisclosed location somewhere in the world. And we will hear more from you. We will check back and see how things are going with all the fundraising and what's happening. So thanks again, Mark. And bye, everybody, from Mormonish. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.